Welcome. I'm Travis.
And I'm Tyler, and this is Strategies for Success, a show that explores many topics while aiming to equip listeners with simple and practical lessons you can use in your everyday life.
Now join us on our journey as we reach for the impossible.
Welcome back, guys. My name is Tyler.
Hey, it's Trav, and we've got a very special episode today with a very special guest. Special, backed by popular demand, Mike McCrate. Man, they're loving you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Did you hear all that applause?
Yeah, that sounded good. Got that live audience tonight.
Yeah, we had to pay them to do that, but just kidding. We're glad to have you on the episode with us.
Good to be here, guys.
So we were talking earlier on the phone as we were leading up to the podcast, and we said you were telling me about some experiences that you had, and I brought up the question, customer service, does it still exist? And you said, let me tell you what.
Well, let me give you guys, you guys know my background, but everybody that listens to this probably don't. So I'll give you a little bit of background about customer service that I grew up with, because as you guys know, I spent my entire career in the retail farm equipment business, and I managed a parts department, and then I became a store manager, managed stores in 5 different locations. And then a few years later, I bought my own store from the company. So I've had several different positions, but my first position back in the early 70s was parts manager at a company store out in the Texas Panhandle. And during my first day on the job, I'll never forget, a customer came in and we had a brand new square baler that just came out, and they probably had sold 4 or 5, but we only had one on the lot, and it had just come out of the crate. But customer needed a part, so like my first day, I go over there and look this part up, and unfortunately, we didn't have it. So I went in and asked my boss. I said, "Hey, what do we do? We got a guy here needing this part pretty bad, and we don't have it." And I'll never forget, he took me over to the door and he said, "You see that baler sitting over there? It just came out of the crate. Grab some wrenches, go out there and take that part off of that hay baler and get this guy going, and then you'll never fail to stock that part in the future, because you got to have it." And so I made sure I had him after that. But I remember when I interviewed for that job, for that parts position, the guy told me, he said, out in the Panhandle here, he said, we bale hay starting usually about 2 o'clock in the morning, because it's so dry. We have to wait until the dew comes on, or the leaves will just shatter off the alfalfa. They baled a lot of alfalfa out there. And he said, when people break down in the middle of the night, they may call you, and if they do, your job is to come up here, open up, and get them apart. And I was thinking today, if you interviewed people today and told them that story, I don't know how many people would sign up for the position or want the job, But we sold equipment back in those days by out-servicing our competitors. And we had some pretty tough competitors back then, just like we do today. But we guaranteed the customer that we'd do everything possible to eliminate them having any downtime. And that's the kind of customer service I grew up in. But things have changed a lot over the years. And a lot of employees today, they just don't realize that they have a vested interest in trying to make sure their company succeeds and grows. And professionalism just seems like a thing of the past. Personal grooming and dress codes, nobody worries about that stuff anymore. But that's the world I grew up in.
Remember I was telling you Saturday there was a major food chain that was advertising breakfast sandwiches really cheap. And so we said, hey, we're going to get biscuits for all the guys at work. So we called down there to give them a heads up. And when we told them we wanted 30 biscuits, it was blank was the was the answer.
Wow.
And I was thinking, here's this company spending all this money to get people to come down and buy these breakfast sandwiches with this huge ad campaign. And then when you called to order it, that was the response.
Well, I'll tell you, I had kind of a similar experience in Tulsa because I had a great employee, but when we'd really get busy during the year, sometimes he'd just start, freaking out and going off on customers and stuff. I told him one day, I said, man, we're spending a ton of money on advertising to get these people to come in here, and then you go off on them, you're going to scare them off. They won't come back. But I don't know. I just don't know why people are that way, but it's just because, like that person going off on you, they weren't interested in making the company better. They were just there to do a job and get a paycheck, and that's all they care about.
Yeah, it meant more work for them.
Yep.
But some of my customer service pet peeves nowadays are like these call centers when something breaks and you call in, and these major companies all have these stations overseas where labor is a lot cheaper than here, and you end up talking to somebody that doesn't even speak good English. You can't understand every other word they say, and they're trying to tell you how to fix your product, and it's crazy. But
I think sometimes they do that intentionally, so you'll just hang up, put you on a long hold.
well, and another thing that happens sometimes is for over 30 years out here where I live, we've had a local trash service that picked our trash up every week, and you could kind of depend on when they'd be here, and I mean you knew within an hour or two what time they'd be here. And so within the last year, some huge company bought these guys out, and now our service has just really gone downhill. And like one morning, I got a call. A guy told me, he said, hey, did you get your trash out this morning? And I said, no, I didn't get up at 6 o'clock to go down there. Usually if I put it out by 9 o'clock, they'd pick it up in the afternoon. But that morning they came at 7 o'clock or 7:15. So we called in to ask them what their schedule was. And they said, well, our schedule is just whenever we can get there and our driver wants to be there. So the next week, well, I made sure that was out there real early, and they came about 7 o'clock in the evening. So, that's no service, and we're looking for a new trash service. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think about this stuff a lot, and I guess have a little bit different situation that I grew up in being younger, but I can already see stuff. A lot of customer services went downhill, and I've had some situations where I try to go above and beyond to help people, but I've had some times where I just think, hey, I just did the normal amount of customer service, and maybe I didn't have a chance to go above and beyond in this situation, and people will thank me like I did something crazy. And sometimes that's kind of an eye-opener to think about. Now I think if you just do a decent job at it, people will, that's pretty good customer service now. But I guess, how do you think that this is something that I guess could be combated, or do you almost think we're too far gone? That's what I think about a lot.
Well, you're not too far gone. You guys aren't too far gone, and the people listening to this aren't too far gone, because what customers are looking for, I'm just an average old normal guy out here, and I know what I'm looking for. When I buy a product, I'm looking for a hassle-free experience. I don't want something I got to go in and fight with somebody if I need service. I mean, I bought a lot of vehicles from a local car dealership, and sometimes they got new help and they act like I just fell out of a turnip wagon or something. But you want to be treated like, you're a loyal customer. And I bought a little more high-end vehicle within the last few years, and I really appreciate the service those people. Of course, you pay for that service, but If I need my oil change, they'll pick my vehicle up and they'll even leave me a loaner if I need it here. And you're paying for that service, but at least my generation, that's what we're looking for, and I think that's what a lot of people are still looking for.
Yeah, I agree. That I think there was like a turn. I mean, we were already headed down this path, but then it got to COVID and stuff got real crazy. So now you have customers that come in demanding stuff and they're like just they don't even make sense. And then I think some of that's spawned also from the way that they're treated from customer service.
Well, the whole world has just changed dramatically because when I grew up we didn't have we we're lucky to have a television set, and like you said one time, Trev, you saw that motel had that sign that said color TV. Dad, why would they have that out there? Well, we never had one when I was growing up, and so things have changed a lot, and the world has just sped up so much from like that hay baler thing I was telling you about too. We probably back then we might have been working with maybe, from the balers that were still out in the field being used to the modern ones that just came out. We might have been looking at 10 models. And what you guys are faced with today is there might be 100 models you're trying to take care of. So it's just impossible to stock parts. Like we were a company owned store. We stocked about every part on every machine that we sold just because we were using the company's money.
Right.
But you can't afford to have parts like that anymore. You just got to do the best you can. And but my strategy for success is just always offer fair prices and super service. I think that's what you got to do is you've got to out-service your competitors.
I've even
You know
noticed that
what I'm
people
saying?
aren't as concerned about the price if they get the quality of service.
Well, you've heard it said many times, and I believe it that your best advertising is word of mouth. And of course, we all still spend a lot of money trying to reach new customers and everything, but word of mouth. And so, you guys both realize because you've dealt with this for a while, but if you take care of a guy in super service, he might tell 5 people that he knows. He might say, "Well, you guys really took care of me." But if you make one guy mad over some little deal, he'll blow you up on social media and tell everybody he knows. So,
Yeah.
it we didn't have social media back in the day. I mean, what communications have just completely they're completely off the wall from what they were, and I think that's caused a lot of our issues that we have too.
Me and Tyler were talking the
People,
other day that, like, I had a customer come in the store and our system automated text them and says, "Hey, I hope you had a good experience. Let us know how we did," just to get a review. And it's been a really good thing for us. But it was sent to a company number, and their auto text replied. And next thing you know, these auto texts are talking to each other through AI. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, this is wild stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you got good reviews.
Me too. Me too. So you gave a lot of pointers here and a lot of how not to. If someone said, "Hey, I agree with you. I need to do some stuff here to improve my customer service." If someone come up and said that today, said tomorrow I'm starting on this, where would you start?
Well, what you have to do is try to put yourself in the place of that customer. And so let's just say you're selling a guy, you sold a guy a lawnmower. He's brought a lawnmower in for service and broke down, and he needs that thing back as quick as he can get it because this grass is growing 2 inches a day out here. And so trying to move things through as fast as you can and keep people going, and I know there's times you just get overwhelmed because in our business it's impossible to hire enough people for the peak and then have to lay them all off when you hit the valley in the winter. So we have to hit a happy medium somewhere and go from there. But put yourself in the customer's place and think how you would feel if you were treated the way they were treated. And that's what I would recommend to you.
And I think a lot of it probably comes with being kind and showing some effort. I think people appreciate the effort, especially nowadays.
You gotta just go above and beyond. But I knew a guy one time, and you guys know who I'm talking about, but his motto was do unto others before they do unto you. And personally, over the years, I found that old golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I think that's the key to success right there in a nutshell.
I agree. Well, we try to issue a challenge at the end of every episode. You got a challenge kind of related to this topic for everybody?
Yeah, my challenge is to bring back customer service to a higher level.
Okay.
In your own dealership.
Okay. And if they're just an employee or somewhere somebody's working, just start with them.
One other thing I was going to tell you, I don't know how this guy that hired me to go to work for this company, but by the time I finished that interview, my initial interview, I was so pumped up. He was telling me about how great the company was and the history and the benefit programs and all the things that they had to offer. And I was so pumped up that I would have taken a bullet for that company. And if you can figure out a way to get your employees excited about working for you, and I know it's tougher to do than it used to be, but that's, I think you're doing some really good things with the things you're doing for your employees now that we didn't do in the past, like these employee appreciation things and things like that. I think that's a really good thing.
I read in a book. It was actually by David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby. But he said in there that his number one goal is to take very good care of his employees because his employees take very good care of his customers in return.
I think that's exactly right, because you got to get them to realize that the employees are what makes it happen, and if everybody's on board and pulling in the same direction, I mean, you can hardly lose.
Yep. Got to make customer service great again.
That's right. So just a little recap on the challenge. No matter where you are in the ladder of success, it starts with you on customer service. So if you're the guy at the counter, if you're the guy working in the office, if you're the manager, branch manager, let the customer service come back. That's your challenge. To let it start right there with you. Dad,
we could get some caps that said MSCGA.
That's right. So, hey, it's always great having you on with us.
It's a lot of fun.
Hopefully we can book you again before you get booked up with other podcasts. But all right, thanks again for being on with us.
Go out there and make it happen, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.